Saturday AM Live with Vance Rogers.
With our guests, Michael and Veronica Cerny. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Cerny. And what ethnicity is your last name?
It's Italian.
Italian. Okay. In the way you just said, it's Italian. It's kind of like you throw your hand up and you want to grab some garlic bread or some pasta when you say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you tie my hands up, they say that I won't be able to talk.
Well, thank you guys for taking a few minutes out of your schedule to join us. I know that the subject that we're going to discuss is one that seems to be creeping into our culture. This topic of Crohn's disease, there's still a lot of mystery out there. What is it? Or come on, it can't be that bad. Why, or why is it, like fibromyalgia? Maybe a decade or 15 years ago, that became the new buzzword that everybody seemed to have, or every fifth person seemed to have. So, but let's go back, Michael. I know that as a mid-40s, this is something that affected you greatly, and so tell us about what life was like prior to NECAN. I mean, as one who dealt with Crohn's disease.
Okay, I was diagnosed at 18 with the Crohn's. I was always tired. I was always drained. Never wanted to do anything, and because I was always scared that I wasn't around a restroom. The pain, discomfort, always depressed, very moody, always having fights with my family, basically because they couldn't understand what was wrong with me. They were just saying, oh, it's your imagination. Back in the people didn't know, and today they still don't know what Crohn's is. And it took me getting put into the hospital for my mom to realize actually what was Crohn's.
Now, Michael, I want to ask you. You said you were moody, you were depressed. Physical pain or discomfort or agony, as well as just the mental side of things.
Yes.
So what? Well, I mean,
it was constant stomach pains. I was very weak. I couldn't eat. At 18 years old, you want to go out and you want to be with your friends, do what they do, and I couldn't, because I was always having my flare-ups, and I constantly, every time a flare would happen, I would constantly have stomach pains and severe diarrhea.
Okay. So and again, going back to my teenage years, not a fun thing to be dealing with when you've got that going on and you're wanting to at least have somewhat of a social life. So what did, once it was addressed and once you were diagnosed, what was the cure-all for it, or what they do to treat you?
Oh, I was in and out of the hospital roughly about 8 times. I would say roughly about 8 times in the hospital. They can only do, to ease the flare-ups, I would always have to be put on intravenous medication. The anti-inflammatory side of intravenous, no food, strictly to intravenous. I was put in the hospital, actually one time I remember quite well, for 11 days with a tube in my chest right above my heart. And that was feeding me for 11 days. Okay. It was the severe dehydration. I was 18, 19 years old, and I went from being a nice husky kid all the way down to like 125 pounds.
And you're how? Okay. Yeah, so 125 is a little light for someone who's 5'8". So you, longest time in the hospital, 11 days, and I can fast forward to you guys, how old were you? Or I don't necessarily how old, but you're married, and you're still dealing with this. Are you doing medication, or are you doing therapy? I mean,
no, I actually took myself off my medications. I was on. My wife gave me all these nutritionals. She started me on the NECAN. And, I would have flare-ups in the beginning. They had me on prednisone steroids. I was dependent on the prednisone steroids for almost 20 years.
Okay.
And every time, the highest I was on there was 100 milligrams a day.
And what are the, because I'm not a medication expert, what are some of the fun benefits or side benefits, the side effects of that much, 100 milligrams of prednisone a day?
100 milligrams of prednisone a day, wow. Nobody could talk to me. The slightest word out of somebody talking to me, you get moody. It's just like a regular steroid. You have these athletes doing steroids, and you hear how moody they are, and I have a lot of bone, losing a lot of my bone in my spine because of the steroids. I have lost my teeth because of prednisone steroids. I was on it, and you can't sleep. 100 milligrams a day, you cannot sleep. I was getting an hour a day sleep, and they had to put me on an antidepressant to counteract steroid. And it was the steroid, I kind of had to get used to it because that was my life preserver.
Okay, and when you use that word, getting used to it, I'm immediately reminded of so many people. Kay Logan is the one that jumps into my mind, was told that exact same thing after 2 years of not recovering after a near-fatal car accident. Her doctor saying, you're just going to have to get used to this. You're going to have to learn to live with it. And her response back was, I don't like the person you want me to live with, and I don't want to do this. So you obviously, as you mentioned in 2005, started weaning yourself off of the drugs and replacing it with what you were introduced to Nikken. What was your initial start? And Veronica, you've been so quiet here. So you, for 7 years or so, prior to Nikken being introduced to you guys, was this kind of a, come on, dude, man up. You can't be this bad. What went through your mind? Usually when I do an interview like this, usually it's always not always, but most times it's the husband saying, come on, wife, how bad can fibromyalgia be? How bad can, fill in the blank. But this is kind of a reverse role. What was it like for you?
It was a very big eye-opener for me. And yes, I was just like that. I was like, come on, you can't have the flu that bad, really? So I had to educate myself because I'd never heard of Crohn's before. And I always went with the stigma that, men always exaggerate when they're sick. And then I happened to get an article out of the New York Times. A friend at work gave me an article. And it was written by, and this was probably 4 or 5 years in, and it was written by a Crohn's patient sitting in an emergency room and having to wait to be seen because people didn't think they had a problem. And this person just described in great detail of how they felt. And when I read that article, I was like, oh my goodness. It made me feel actually really bad. And I've always been a natural person. I'll take a drug if I have to, but for a very short period of time to get me over that threshold. But when I was introduced to Nikken, I thought, we've got to try this, because I had tried other things over the counter and actually made him worse because of the reaction that what I thought was a natural product wasn't a natural product.
Okay, now, and I want to back up a little bit. You said you were introduced to Nikken. Friend who just out of the blue said, hey, Veronica, this might help Michael, or was it a totally different encounter?
It was a totally different encounter. I work at my job. I work for the local government here, And they have what you call a wellness program, and they used to do wellness classes on a regular basis that was free to us, and they would have vendors come in or people come in and talk to us about all different realms, even about pharmaceutical reps that were in college training to be pharmacists. They would even come in and talk to us about all different things. And I've seen the insoles that you can get, you know, at flea markets and things. And there was this wellness class that was actually presented by Martha Suyuri. And I went, and she gave this presentation, and I was like, wow, they have a whole realm of things, and that's what introduced me and made me seek more.
Okay, so it was that, when Martha Sue basically did, hey, this is what vital wellness is, that opened the door to, okay, that maybe there's, you know, that maybe there's more.
I knew that anything that was synthetic wasn't really good for us as human beings. And I don't know, I just knew that we needed the natural to help us survive.
Okay. Okay. So you started Michael on a pair of insoles. You drugged him or put him to sleep and cut him down and put it into his insoles, or was Michael, were you pretty receptive to this?
The insoles, yes. I mean, I drove around in the truck all day because I was an inspector, and my feet would always get tired, and my legs would always get tired. So I said, okay, I'll try the insoles. In the beginning, I was just patronizing her. I was just pleasing her. But wearing the insoles, my feet and my legs did not get tired anymore, and it was just amazing. I mean, I could walk in the sand on a construction site, and my legs and my feet would not cramp up. So I said, okay, she might be onto something here, because I'll be honest, I was not a believer in the beginning. So it took a lot of arm twisting. I mean, because I'm the type of person I did not like to try new things. I was so used to being what I thought was normal, just to find out now today that what I thought was normal, not normal.
Sure. Now, and Michael, I almost forgot when you and I first spoke a few weeks ago, you had said that what really was the tipping point or what pushed you over the edge was that you required emergency surgery because you were, I think you used the words, 24 hours from death's door prior to being introduced in Nikan, or was that about the same time? Can you tell us a little bit? And I don't want to dwell on the negativity and the horror of what you experienced, but I think it needs to be shared that this is really major, and that through the introduction of a completely natural solution, it turned your life around, which is where you're at today. So do you mind telling just a little bit about that? I mean,
okay, and I just got done working a whole night for a marathon down here. I went home, I slept, got up, went to work the next morning, and I just didn't feel right. I was sick. I had a stomachache, and I never felt this type of stomachache for a long time. And just out of the blue, I just collapsed to my knees, and I was just throwing up. And one of my coworkers came, and he took care of me. I drove home. Don't ask me how I drove home. But that night, Veronica came home, and I was telling everybody, don't worry, it's just a flu, I'll get over it. Well, they put me in the hospital. Doctor told me to get to the hospital right away. They did all these procedures, the GI series, and they couldn't get a good GI series, and they did the exploratory surgery, and they found out that my intestine was starting to deteriorate, and it busted open, and all my inside fluids were leaking into my stomach. So they had to remove a little over 16 inches of my intestine and colon.
Wow. Okay. So this was a major, a major setback, so to speak. And you mentioned this several times. And again, I don't want to keep dwelling on the negative, but I want to paint a picture for my own understanding of how debilitating this condition can be. You've mentioned several times the flu. You're really susceptible to getting sick? Is that what takes place?
I was, but I would always. Everybody would say, cause I guess I got used to my mom and my family saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's just the flu." And I mean, but I just beginning when I just thought it was the flu. But the pain, I mean, I was in my bed, crawled up, and I couldn't take the pain. I was moaning, and I basically scared the heck out of my mother-in-law. And after they got me to the emergency room, I don't remember much because they automatically just drugged me up, and I mean, the only last thing I remember is just waking up after the surgery and just knowing what they did, because they were just going to go in there and just look around, and then they decided they had to just cut me open and take all that out.
Okay. So, and again, I didn't want to backpedal, but at the same time, okay. You had mentioned that the other day. I thought I gotta make sure Michael shares that. So let's rewind now and go back the other direction. Veronica, you said you get a pair of insoles. Michael, you start wearing them, and your feet aren't getting tired on the job site anymore. And so that was the start. Then how did it progress? What else is part of Nikin's Vital Wellness program, dealing with sleep, water, air, nutrition? You were looking more at the daytime energy. What was the next step?
The next step that we went to was I had seen the lactoferrin product and was told the benefits of that, so I put him on that and Jade Green first.
Okay, so basically lactoferrin to help build his immunity because he dealt with getting sick, and then the Jade Green enzymes being it's a whole food, and more improvement immediately, or take a few weeks, couple months, what?
It took him a couple months, and of course, the first thing before any of it was water, because I got tired of buying bottled water, so we did that too in the very beginning. But in talking to doctors, and at one point I was privileged to meet Dr. Pedersen, and talking to him, and with the way they described it to me is that with a Crohn's patient, you can't just give them a handful of pills and say, here, take this can help you, because their system is so vulnerable. So with Michael, we had to, and he couldn't take one lactoferrin a day, and he couldn't take 4 Jade Green a day. He had to start out in the beginning with 1 lactoferrin every 3 days.
Interesting. So you basically had to kind of ease them into it.
Yes.
And you chose the Jade Green enzyme capsules versus the powder, which I find interesting as well. And by segueing that into the system so you're not freaking out, but allowed it. And you'd mentioned the water as well. So you already just switched over because you didn't want to spend the money on bottled water, and I understand that because it's a real pain in the rear. And Michael, easing into this with the lactoferrin to help build the immunity, and then the Jades to basically, because it's a whole food and we don't get the barley in our systems or in our diets anymore. Were you keen to this, or was this kind of another what are they going to try on me this time idea?
To be honest, I was skeptical. I wasn't quite sure where they were taking me until one night Martha Sue was in the house, and she was actually making me laugh because she was falling asleep sitting up. And what got me to the Jade Green is she wanted some Jade Green, and so she had some Jade Green, and then she stood in front of the air unit and was taking deep breaths. And after that, you couldn't shut her up. So I said, okay. And she tried it on me. She she gave me the jade green. She said, here, stand by the air unit. And I said, okay. So I did it, and I said, wow, okay. Go ahead, Veronica, get whatever you want. And I was fine with it, and I started taking the lactoferrin and jade green on a daily basis, and whatever else Martha Sue or Veronica wants to put me on, I was fine with it because I was actually feeling good.
Okay. And that was, we're talking 7 years ago.
Yes.
And how much of the prednisone or the steroids or any of this other stuff have you been on since the introduction of Niken?
Honestly, without the doctor's permission, I mean, I basically stopped everything.
Vance, I'd like to say, before we get into that, when he started weaning himself into the nutritionals in March, April, we were able to wean him completely off with the doctor by December.
Okay.
So he went from taking his 80 to 100 milligrams a day and being off of it by December of that year.
Okay. So, and again, Veronica, I cannot thank you enough for putting that little caveat in there, because so often we know our own bodies, and the commercials that drive me most nuts are, why would you trust, any of your medical needs to anybody, even yourself? You got to trust your doctor, because your doctor knows exactly what. Yeah, yes and no. I think we're responsible for our own wellness and our own plan. However, at the same time, we need to leverage people who may know more about the condition we have or the situation we're in, because they're the ones that go to school for this and they study this, and they should be up on the latest. But I love the fact that you and the doctor, you work through a program to get, because you can't continue. I don't even want to know what the side effects of taking that much prednisone, besides what you'd said, no sleep, losing bone mass, your teeth falling out, and all that stuff. But you can't continue on that, because I can't help but think that might have been a contribution to them having to remove part of your intestine, because eventually that starts shutting, bodily organs down because of the heavy, chemical base that's in it. Can we fast forward to today? How long has it been since you've been to the doctor, Michael?
Roughly about 5 years.
Really?
Yes.
5 years.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at today. Strictly off my medicine, strictly off the prednisone. I come and go as I please. I can go out, spend the whole day outside, and I guess that's normal. That is what normal people do, is just go outside and enjoy themselves. And if that's what it is, yes, I don't want to go backwards. I just want to go forward.
So since 18, now you know what normal is. So you've had, prior to Niken, you're talking 20 years of not being normal, and the last 5 of not being to the doctor and living that normal life. And I don't think that's being selfish in any respect. And my guess would be that you guys are doing more than just the water, the jade green enzymes, and the lactoferrin.
Oh, absolutely. I got him a sleep system. He wears the back belt.
Now, if I can turn in the few minutes that we have remaining, if I can turn the tables entirely, not everybody deals with a life-altering condition like Michael, what you were dealing with. But in the everyday bumps and bruises, headaches or this or things that our bodies go through, how have you been able to share with others, or have you been able to share with others what you guys have experienced with not chasing any ambulances, so to speak, or hunting for other, Crohn's sufferers, but just the everyday person that, as Michael said, looking for a normal life?
My family, they are ecstatic about what Niken has done for them, and they do take some of the products. his oldest sister actually has Crohn's now, and she's a doctor believer. So we do share, and we just leave it up to the good Lord on what they decide. And
if it doesn't work for you, you could always go back to the other stuff. You know, but I'm thinking, Michael, you're probably not keen in the least bit about giving that as an option of going back to the old Michael, eh?
No, I'm not going back there.
Stupid, foolish question, but I just had to throw it out. Is there any one piece of advice that, Michael, you or Veronica, either one of you or maybe both of you, that you would give to any of us that when we come across, because it's not a matter of if we're a human being and we have two ears and one mouth, we're going to converse and interact with people. We're going to hear folks say that, you know, well, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, or I've been dealing with this for years, or I have these symptoms that may be similar to what you're dealing with, and maybe they don't even know. Is there any one thing, Veronica, you noted it was a New York Times article by a patient who described the agony they were going through and the waiting and waiting and waiting to get treatment. Is there any one thing, anything that jumps out for both of you that you would encourage us to say, when you come across somebody like this, do this?
I would just like to, I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking me, but if I was praying for a solution because I did not like and I did not understand what was happening to the man I had chosen to live with the rest of my life. So just stop and think. If you're praying for a solution and one of us happens to cross your path, just keep an open mind. We are just wanting to help and let everybody know that there is another way, and it's God's way, because it is going back to basics, and our body can heal itself provided the right environment.
Okay. Michael, what about for you? Any advice?
The only thing that pops into my head is don't be afraid. Don't be stubborn. Try something new. I'll be the first one to admit I was the biggest, stubbornest person going. Don't be stubborn. If the help is there, and find information out. It ain't gonna hurt to try. I'm living proof that you don't try, you're not gonna find out how it works for you. I tried it, and I'm here today because of it.
And to quote Phil again, you can go back if you want to. If it doesn't work, you can go back. But obviously for you, it worked very, very successfully. 5 years, and I lie when I guess I should say I don't convey the whole truth when I say I don't understand, what some of these drugs do. I do. As a volunteer firefighter, I see firsthand the negative effects every single week when we go on a medical call. I see the effects of somebody that's taking 27 medications. That's my all-time record of a lady who should not have been taking that many. And again, that's just my opinion, but being in the condition when we found her, I would say the medications were killing her. And I keep talking to more and more medical people who confirm that, as you guys just stated, let's get back to the basics. Let's get back to God's way.